Happy Monday. What's going on? Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope you had a great weekend. But we don't waste a lot of time. So let's get right into it. Addiction. Wow. So I grew up in the mid 80s because I was still a little young in the beginning of the 80s, mid 80s and 90s. And so the big thing was that if you're old enough to remember, is the whole kind of New Jack City movement and the whole crack epidemic. Now, you grew up in that, and shout out to one of my buddies, Des Jack. We just had a long conversation slash spirited debate over this, and just talking about what the plight was of a lot of urban inner city communities after the crack epidemic. So that's just one thing, but it really did a job as far as disenfranchising an entire community. And the one thing I will give a lot of credit to is for those people who did it or sold it and were able to at some point make a change and turn around and try to do good things for the community. But I'm just telling you, growing up, and especially in my neighborhood, seeing it almost made our neighborhood, look like Beirut because there was a lot of stuff taken away for people to buy drugs. So, people would steal your car antennas. For those of you not old enough to understand or remember, the antennas used to be all metal. So they weren't retractable or in the rear window. So what people would do is that they would take them off and use them, to shoot up, to do whatever. And also, too, other dramatic parts about it that you, as a kid, get used to. You would see the little crack vials or little baggies around, everywhere in the street because, hey, listen, after you do crack or whatever you do, you're not thinking about, hey, let me go and take this with me. No. And you started seeing needles from people who did heroin. So that was my early experience slash introduction to drug use to the point where obviously it was a huge addiction. So now, according to the CDC, because I know now we have things that are a lot stronger as far as fentanyl that cause overdoses. So according to the CDC, back in 2022, almost 108,000 people overdosed and died from usage of illegal drugs. All right. And it also says by the time that somebody is over 12 years old, there's a huge percentage, at least 15% of people have tried some type of form of illicit drug or used or purchased illegally to use. It's probably a little higher than that. But a big thing that I want to talk about is what's going on now as far as, with this generation and how we have to try to, I don't even want to say police it, but how things are going to go. So look at it like this. Because, of course, back then you be like, oh, man, they don't crack. They don't heroin. You know what I'm saying? They such and such and such and such. We're going to talk about alcohol, too. So, yeah, it ain't no big thing. And then back when I was a teenager in high school, you had the pancakes and syrup. So that was the Xanny and the codeine, right? So which a lot of the kids call lean now, right? We've gone through these different phases as far as illegal drug use, but now it seems like with the weed, because even me, the first time I ever smoked weed was, I think I was in the bathroom. It was probably about 3 weeks before I graduated high school, and I'm sitting up there acting like I'm knowing what I'm doing. I had no idea what I'm doing. I was like, man, this ain't even getting me high because it was me and about 6 or 7 other boys in the bathroom because they were all smoking. And so I just acted like I hit it. Maybe I did, went out, but I didn't actually get a contact or anything from marijuana until I got to college. And so, even when I first started working and just living life regularly, it was recreational. Hey, yo, you got some? Come on over, man. You know what I'm saying? Let's blow. Oh, you got some? Come on over. We're going to get it in. It'll be, on a Tuesday afternoon after everybody got off of work. You got some? I got some. we got some grit. And I'm gonna tell you what made me really stop smoking weed was because I can't get up here and act holier than thou because I'm not, right? So what made me stop smoking weed was I had this job that I was trying to get, and so I went for the interview, and I said, well, you know what? I don't know if they drug test or not. Some people who had gotten the job before me said, yeah. Then somebody else said they didn't know. So, but whatever, to be on the safe side, before I scheduled the interview and talked to the recruiter, I said, hey, listen, to myself, let me go and try to just not smoke weed at all. And initially, I was grappling with it the first couple of weeks, and I was like, am I addicted to weed? I was like, I don't think I'm addicted to weed because I mean, I'm sure I can stop whenever I want to. Plus, weed ain't like crack or nothing. So I can stop smoking whenever I want to, right? So, but I found that I was having a tough time doing it initially. But then I just said, you know what, look, I'm trying to get out of this old job where I was a case manager. So I was trying to just get a job where I could just go to work and just and not chill. I don't want to say that, but not have as many of those issues that I had in the job I currently had. So I was able to go 2 weeks without smoking. So I go on an interview. And so the manager at the time, she was like, look, I think we want to hire you. We want to keep you and everything. And I'm like, okay, cool. She's like, but I need you to come back for a second interview because the way we do things around here is we do it by committee. So yeah, I make the final decision, but I want, other people that you potentially may work with to come in and sit on an interview with you, which is a really good idea because what it does is it makes everybody else feel invested in you. And then you have some type of feelings of obligation a lot of times to them. So she said, well, when can you come back for the second interview? I said, well, I'm dedicated to the kids and everything that I'm working with. So, I may be able to do a week. So I already had 2 weeks under my belt. Then I was trying to stretch it out one more week, right? So I was able to do it. Then what happens is that she says, okay, well, you got the job. So by this point, though, I knew I had to go down and take a drug test, a urine test. So I'm like, how can I extend this another week? So I was able to extend it another week. And then finally, the recruiter called me and said, hey, how are you doing? I just want to let you know that if you don't go down and take the required drug test, then we're going to have to rescind the offer. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I'm going to have to go through all this. So what I did was, I didn't take anything. I didn't go to GNC or anywhere. I didn't use anybody else's because I was scared that it just wasn't going to work for me, right? So I get down there, I take it, and I'm standing there. I could not go to the bathroom for God knows how long. So then I finally went, did it, and the rest is history. I wound up getting the job because I was probably at that point maybe 5 weeks from smoking weed. So, I was pretty clear or clean. Now, what that did to me psychologically, first off, it scared the what out of me, right? So what it did was it really shifted the way I thought about smoking weed. And not to say that I haven't done it here and there from time to time, but the thing is that it stopped me from being an everyday weed smoker. And it really helped me realize I don't think I need this every day. And it was weird, so I may, drink a little alcohol here and there, which is also probably one of the worst drugs because it's sold everywhere. Anybody can get it. And it's not really technically looked at as a drug. But I was like, yeah, and as time went on and more time went on, I felt like it wasn't a part of my recreational activities anymore. Whereas that before it was like, go out, we're going to smoke before we go out, or everybody going to come over, we're going to smoke and everything like that. And I also think too, as getting older and people, started having kids and their families, there was less time for us to congregate together to smoke. But I will say that, and that happened to me in my early 30s, and it really did change my perspective because think about what I said before. I really was wondering, can I stop smoking weed? Like I really had to put myself to the test because I was thinking maybe I am addicted to smoking weed. So I said, let me just chill. So that's my story. But overall, the story is that where do we stand at now with this generation of kids and smoking weed. And I know, it's a touchy subject because a lot of us may have kids that smoke. Some people actually smoke with their kids, right? And I'm not going to go deep into it like, do I think somebody's right or who's wrong and how they do it, especially when it comes down to people with their kids. But what I will say is that, overall, especially because I know the most about the Black community, right? Is that there's definitely an epidemic with it. There's definitely a situation where as an adult, you do whatever you want. Your kid's an adult, you do whatever you want. But we try to focus in on what could be happening with the kids. And there's a lot of kids that are getting younger that smoke a lot of weed. And because the weed is not kind of like how the weed probably was even 20 or 30 years ago, it's way more potent. It's way more, I think, in my estimation, addictive. And I think that it just does more damage and effects on a person. Because think about it. I know when I used to smoke weed, all I wanted to do was eat and chill, laugh, talk, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, I didn't try my first one until I was 18. So, by the time when I really started smoking, brain was a little more developed or whatever, I'd say. So, but when you have kids at 12, 13, 14 years old smoking weed, and then growing up smoking that weed, there's no way you can't tell me that it doesn't have an adverse effect on these kids, right? Which leads into also with the perks and the Xannies and, the oxys and just different things like that, where, technically it's not crack or heroin, but it has some of the same properties as heroin, right? Or effects. So we have an entire nation of kids who think that smoking weed, because it's been legalized, right? State to state, but federally it hasn't been legalized. So that's the reason why a lot of dispensaries can't even put most of their money in the bank. But that's another story. But the thing is that weed has become so recreational. So even when I'm driving in the car sometimes with the kids, and I remember I was asked this before, like on a summer day with the windows rolled down, and they were like, "Well, Daddy, what's that smell?" You know what I mean? I was like, "Oh no, that's just cigarettes. Don't worry about it." They're like, "No, they don't smell like cigarettes." Right. So, and I can hear people saying, well, you need to explain that to your kids. But, I don't want to have to explain to a 5 or 6 or 7 year old what marijuana is. Right. Because it smells funny, because a lot of times people are just walking around smoking it. People are driving around in their car smoking it. I actually got a lot of more respect for the people who, like me, would sit in the house and do it. But, I'm not saying I haven't driven around in a car before and had weed or smoked weed and stuff like that. But once again, also, too, I was a lot younger, starting to see a lot of older people, doing the same thing. And what I mean by older, anybody over 30, people smoking in front of the babies, people just smoking and doing, whatever. And once again, it's your own decision to make. But the thing is that what type of decision is that making as far as how the other generations are coming up? Because what we smoke, when you smell it, it's everywhere. It's in the air, right? And although it is definitely not as addictive form, and I don't believe as crack or heroin, it doesn't have people going out to do the same kinds of things that I've seen people do for crack or heroin. But it's still using up a lot of people's money. So, I want you to sit down and just think yourself and say, hey, because, some people, especially some of the ladies out there, I know y'all got people that, hook y'all up or whatever, right? So you may not be paying as much of a fee or it's not as costly to you. But what about the average working guys and everything like that? I want some of them to think about that. Like, how much are you spending every day or every week on weed? We don't even want to talk about the perks and stuff like that, because we know that stuff is just, those things are ridiculous. But just think about it. Think about how many of our youngins out here smoking weed all day. Now, hey, look, you're an adult, you go to work, you want to smoke. Hey, you want to smoke while you're at work. I guess if you don't get caught, you cool, right? But the thing is that At a period of time, you start to wonder, do we all need to smoke all the time? Or better yet, let me see, do you think, because like I said, I had to think about it. Can I stop smoking weed? So really think about that one day. And, like, because I had to question myself. And I said, I don't feel like I'm an addict, because most of us in our family and friends, we've had addicts or people who suffered from drug or alcohol use, right? But the question I got is that if you really wanted to stop, say if you tried for a week, if you really wanted to stop, and I know, well, I ain't got no reason to stop. It's the same stuff I used to say, right? I ain't got no reason to stop. I'm cool. I ain't addicted to it. But see if you could stop for a couple weeks and see what happens. Do you think you could function regularly? You think you could function the same way? Or do you think you'll just be an irritable mess because you didn't get a chance to smoke yet? But hey, what do I know? You know what I'm saying? I'm just a guy who, for the most part, I mean, if I smoke, it'll be, I don't know, every whatever, you know what I'm saying, for my birthday. No, maybe a little more than that, but very, very rare. So, but think about it. Tell me what you feel down in the comments and everything. And test that out. See if you can stop smoking for a while and see what happens. And on top of that, see how much money you're spending on the weed. So, but until next time, live life. Don't let life live you.